Let's save that. There we go. Right, we are live on YouTube with. I'm struggling to decide like how I should pronounce your last name. Is it Ali or Ali?
Ali, like
Ali.
Ali.
Okay, so we got Carmen Ali. A change to my scheduled programming today because we were going to have a guest on earlier to talk about her experience with OnlyFans and the shift in all of the adult industries, actually, that technology has I don't want to say forced, but like technology has sort of served as the catalyst to sort of push adult entertainment industries into a different realm. And unfortunately, she couldn't be with us. But we have Carmen Ali here, who works in a very similar industry. And yeah, and like I don't know, have we ever been on the same bill together? I don't know if we have.
I don't think so. I think we've only met like online.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sort of aware of you because of like the Comedy Collective. I suppose I should mention that as well. So do you still run the Comedy Collective or?
Yes, very reluctantly.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like it's a sort of labour of love with an emphasis on the labour there.
Yeah, I kind of just like let people get on with it now. I don't really stress too much about it.
Yeah. It's yeah, so we're aware of each other with that, and I had put messages out like last week saying I was keen to speak to anyone that worked within these industries, and your name came up, and thank you so much for stepping in at the last minute. So I suppose a good place to start really would be to get an understanding of like your bio, like your career. Let's start with the comedy stuff. So like first off the bat, how did you end up getting into stand-up?
So the reason I started doing stand-up is because I was actually already doing burlesque.
Oh, right. Okay.
Burlesque is because, oh, let me turn those WhatsApp notifications off.
Cool.
Because I was working as a stripper, and then I kind of saw burlesque and liked that as a kind of more performance element of striptease.
Cool.
So I did stripping, did burlesque, and then when I was doing burlesque, I kept doing variety nights where there were loads of comedians on, and I was like, oh, this looks really fun. Maybe I could do that. Like, you get to talk. I like talk. So I signed up for Jester Jesters, if you can remember, back in the day. It was my first gig there.
Cool.
And seemed to remember people laughing.
Yeah.
So that carried on, really. That was like, oh my God, that was like 2000 and I want to say 2011.
Yeah.
10 years ago.
So I was doing a bit of sort of like panic research on you earlier, and
really?
I found an old interview that was about 2011, and you in the interview you said that you'd been going about 6 months,
Okay.
and that you were loving it. And I thought, yeah, well, she could only have been about 6 months in then at that point.
Yeah, that kind of like early baby comedian, like rose tinted spectacles.
Yeah, like when you still have friends that you can take to gigs and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I
So
still love it, but in a different way now, I think.
Yeah, like that's an interesting trajectory though, because it's like, I suppose the assumption on my part, ignorant though it may be, was that you had gotten into stand-up, really enjoyed performing, and then, maybe at a cabaret show or something, someone had said, oh, you should try this is good fun too. And then you'd kind of sort of gone that route, but it's actually the opposite way around, right?
Yeah, I went stripping, burlesque, comedy, stripping, burlesque, comedy, stripping.
Yeah.
And now I do all of them.
So if that was like 2011, like, I hope I'm not being too like proby too early in this, but like, so how did you just like get into stripping? Because that's like 10 years ago, right? You must have been pretty young.
When I was at uni, I was looking for a part-time job, and the strip club was there.
Yeah.
Some friends for one of the guys' birthdays. I'd never been to a strip club before, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And this hot stripper came over. She was like, does anyone want to take me for a dance? I was like, yes, I will take you for a dance. I took her for a dance, and I was like, I could do this.
Yeah.
I might do this. So, and the rest is history.
And is it like, I mean, I'll get onto the tech stuff in a little bit, but I'm genuinely so curious. So like, is it as lucrative as people make out? Is it like, people kind of strip their way through university and then pay off all of their tuition fees and everything, and they don't have to worry about rent for like, is it that
So
lucrative?
for me, like it was fairly consistent when I was at uni, the club that I worked at, and I was able to like pay my rent and have a bit of extra money, which I wouldn't have been able to do with just my student loan.
Mm,
And like I'd had a bar job before that, and it just wasn't that good. It would be like £40 a week or something
yeah.
extra for like, quite a few hours work. And then went to the strip club, and the first night I made, like, after house fee, I made £110,
Yeah.
which is like, amazing for like 6 hours work.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Of course, like everything is exaggerated. So, there are strippers who will earn thousands of pounds, but that's not everybody and that's not every club. Like usually that would be a very kind of like top earning stripper in, say, like Platinum Lace or Stringfellows or something like that. But like the average strip club,
Mm,
you might earn £50 one night, you might earn £100 one night, you might earn 200 or 300 one night, but it's kind of like up and down, and it's like
yeah.
not lucrative as people think it is, but it can be if you have a good night.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's more a sort of case of like, it's like it just pays better than the other minimum wage jobs, and you get to do it in a compressed amount of time. So then you've got the rest of the week free to focus on the things that you actually want to do.
Yeah, but it is like risk and reward. So like you do take a risk by going to work because you have to pay your house fee. So it's like, whereas you might go to a minimum wage job and you're guaranteed that £40 for 6 hours, whatever it is.
Right.
Go to the strip club, you would go there, you would pay your house fee, which might be £20, might be £50, it might be a percentage of your income.
Yeah.
And then you make money back on top of that.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. So the model of the strip club, I never knew this. I mean, I knew there was some sort of arrangement with like the owners or the landlord or whatever, but so every girl that strips in the strip bar pays some money to the fat guy behind the counter. He makes a lot of money. Wow.
Yeah, and this thing about like, obviously we're going to move in onto this in a bit, but
Yeah.
like what we do with Cybertease, which is a virtual strip club that I'm part of now, we run it as a co-op. So basically we've been able to, by going online, be able to completely cut out like the middleman, like cut out the strip club bosses, because we get to keep all our ticket fees and all our tips, and we split them between everyone involved. So like,
Yeah.
it's great because we're not giving away any of our money.
Yeah. It sounds a lot fairer, right?
Yeah, it is fair, and that's how it should be. And we have done that in real life before. Like the model that we kind of adapted it from is something called Brazilian Wax, which is a night in the vaults where there's a pop-up strip club, and we would share all the profits for that. So we did that in February. Me and some of the other strippers that I know.
Mm.
So last year, and then some of us from that have now become members of Cybertease.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like Brazilian Wax, the woman who puts it on, like it's not just a strip club, it's a cabaret show as well. It has lots of different things going on. She still has to pay the vaults for that and like kind of organize that with them. But what she does is she gives us the space that she is part of what she's rented out, and then we would have free reign of that, and then keep all the profits from that. Even the door money from them coming into that particular room, because we had that particular room
Yeah.
like closed, and people had to pay to come into the strip club.
Yeah. Wow. So you're quite industrious with this then. Like, did you also like run your own comedy nights as well beforehand?
A bit, like I've run a few here and there, or like with a friend and stuff, but I would say I'm probably not that seriously.
Right.
I think that actually I've become more serious about being a producer during lockdown, because I've like starting Cybertease and Sexquisite Events, which is my other company.
Yeah.
That when Maeve run, she founded it, and I've now come on board with her, so we're co-artistic directors now. We produced an online cabaret show in January.
Yeah.
With sex workers, and we sold like, I can't remember how many tickets, but we sold quite a lot of tickets, and we were able to pay the performers like a decent amount for their time. And like I feel like in lockdown I flourished as a performer and as a producer.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
thing.
amazing. I mean, I've heard that there are challenges with promoting that sort of stuff online as well, and I'd be interested to pick your brains on like how you've managed to do it, because aren't there sort of restrictions around like, look, if you're gonna have a show, a burlesque, very adult show where there might be, you know, boobs and fannies flying around, how do you then promote that on something like Facebook or Instagram without getting in trouble and banned and locked out? Like they'll ban your whole fucking handset. So like, how do you make a success of it?
Yeah, lots of sex workers and burlesque performers have been shadow banned behind these platforms. Some people have had their accounts deleted with no reason.
Yeah.
So you have to be quite careful about how much skin you show. Sometimes it's just random, like someone will report your account.
Yeah.
Like sometimes Instagram will notice things, sometimes they won't. We've also started, you know, not typing out the word sex workers anymore, which is really annoying, but just kind of like stay under the radar. So we will write S*X workers or SWERS.
That's a bit like, have you heard this stuff about like TikTok accountants?
Yes, so a lot of like OnlyFans performers will say, "Oh, I'm an accountant."
Yeah. And I was like, "Oh, that's fuck!" Like, because it was like I saw this sort of alternative model who's based in Los Angeles, and like she looks like somebody I would have gone out with, you know, like 10, 15 years ago. So being the 40-year-old fucking IT geek I am now, I was like, "Oh, well, I'll follow her," and I saw in like one of her TikTok videos, she was talking about being an accountant. And I was really impressed. I was like, well, that's really cool. Because I thought, you know, she was just doing a bit of modeling and like working in a cafe, because all of her videos are her like serving people in a cafe.
Can I just interrupt you?
Yeah.
Like you say, oh, you know, I thought she was an accountant. That was really cool. But then I found out she was still just a model or performer. Like she's still a sex worker. But the thing is that we are accountants as well. Like we have to like manage all our expenses. We have to like, you know, manage our money ourselves. We're self-employed. We have to do all that stuff. So like we're multi-talented, and like also I feel like society has given us this view that if you're an accountant, oh my god, you're so successful, you became an accountant, like well done. But like if you're on OnlyFans, like taking pictures of your amazing sexy naked body, no, that's not very respectable. Why would you do that? But it's like, actually, I'm still hustling. It's just in a different way, you know. I'm making money. I'm just using a different means to do it.
Yeah, I get that.
No, like this is better than this, or this is like.
There's,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Like I was going to say, there's a sort of entrepreneurial, like lean to it, isn't there? Like it's sort of like it's an easy go-to slur to be able to say, she's just getting a kit off. It's easy money. And the knee-jerk reaction, I suppose, from somebody like yourself would be to be like, oh, is it easy? Okay, cool. Like, be my guest. Here's the stage. Like, here's the camera. You fucking do it and try and get some, you know, recurring customers coming in. And
the amount of time that goes into promo, the amount of time that goes into making content, like talking to your like customers online and like keeping people interested. People don't realize how difficult it is. So, yeah, it's hard work. And like, just like, anything is hard work. You have to put the time in. People will see these success stories and be like, oh my god, this person made £10,000 on OnlyFans. Like that person is working like 40 hours a week on their OnlyFans, and they already got loads of followers on their social media from whatever, maybe they were an influencer or something. So like you can't kind of compare that to the average person, and also you can't talk about income as a measure of success. So like saying that it's only valid that you did this because you made all this money. Like, even if you're a sex worker and you still only make like what would be the equivalent of doing minimum wage in a bar or something, you've still got a job and you're still working and it's still valid. So like, I think we just have to question all the narratives surrounding sex work.
Yeah, and also like, so something you've touched on there is this idea that, like money makes the man, if you like, whereas some of the biggest arseholes I've ever met in my life have been rich, and some of the most like, you know, diamond geezers, if you like, have been, you know, working class. Like I grew up on council estates. I know a load of people who don't, you know, work in sort of high flying office jobs, or they're not lawyers, they're not doctors, etc. So, yeah, maybe we need to move away from that a little bit. I was going to sort of touch on
thing about like what your job is and like how much money you make, and we definitely need to challenge that more.
Yeah, I think it will get challenged though. I think like the next generation coming up, I think there's this idea of like I was reading some blogs about this a few years ago about multi-hyphenates. Have you heard of that term?
No.
It's like, so it would fit sort of quite well with someone like yourself. Like it's this idea that you know, traditionally people would say, oh, I'm a factory technician, or they would say I'm a car mechanic, or I'm a programmer. And now, because of the gig economy, if you like, like these kids today, like what they're sort of forced into doing is like, oh, I can do 2 days a week Deliveroo, but they won't give me any more shifts of that. So then I'll do 2 days a week driving an Uber. And so what they end up with is this sort of, I'm a Deliveroo / Uber / YouTuber / like, so they end up having a lot of like strings to their bow. And like the best example, or the person that I read about who made a success of it, the best, was this girl who said she was fed up of doing like a 9-to-5 job, but it was like temp work. It was insecure, and she ended up getting offered the job full time, like as a permie. And she said, I want like 30k, and they said, no, the job only pays like 26 or something. And then she said, I tell you what, pay me 26 and I will work Monday to Thursday. And then she had every Friday off to focus on her like YouTube channel or whatever it was that she was trying to build up. And then when that got to a certain level, she was like, I'm only going to work 3 days a week now. So then she was like, and yeah, so the multi-hyphenate thing is like, I'm a temp one day, but then I'm a stripper the next day. And then the third day I'll work on my YouTube. And
When you multi-hyphenated, I didn't think what you meant at the first, and then I realized what you meant. But like, it's like, yeah, I'm a comedian, burlesque performer, stripper, producer, workshop facilitator, writer. Like, do you know what I mean? There's so many.
Yeah. Do you think that's the thing with like creatives? Not to sound too pretentious about it, but do you think we're sort of, we're keen to dive into as many different pies as possible? Because I know I sort of get maybe a bit too carried away with stuff, like where 1 minute I'm like, yeah, I'm going to start a podcast, and then the next minute I'm like, yeah, I'm going to start my own like rival Edinburgh Fringe, and then the next minute I'm like, yeah, I'll do that, then I'll get back to my own stand-up. And do you think that's something with us where
you have to be entrepreneurial, and like it's another way of people seeing your stuff and seeing your work? Like if you just stick to one thing, then you're limited to that one thing. But I also think, for me personally, when you have a creative brain, I can't just stick to one thing. I get ideas for all different things all the time. I've always got these crazy ideas in my head.
Yeah.
So like sometimes it'll be like, oh, I could write a joke out of that. And then sometimes I'll have an idea, and it's like that idea will only work as a burlesque routine. So I'll have to make that into a burlesque routine, and that will say what I want to say.
Yeah.
So yeah. I think it's good to be able to have like different mediums that you can convey your art with.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it, in a way? Like sometimes I think, like, do you ever feel jealous of people who don't get that sort of constant? I'm trying to think of a way to phrase this. It doesn't make me sound like a pretentious prick, but like a couple of times a day you think of an idea for something, and then that's it. You are arrested. Like, you want to work on it. You can't rest. You can't be disturbed or disrupted, because you just have to get this thing out of you. And sometimes I think, God, it must be such a sweet life if you're just a gardener and you just fucking love gardens. And that's it.
Yeah.
Like,
but maybe you get really obsessed with gardens, and then you're sitting there watching TV, and then you come up with an idea of a different garden that you want to landscape and some flowers that you want to put together. And I don't know, garden is still a bit of a creative job.
Yeah.
But I completely agree with you. Like, sometimes it's overwhelming having all these ideas, but I think being creative is like both a blessing and a curse, and like I wouldn't want it any other way, but it is difficult to manage sometimes.
Yeah. I want to go back to adult entertainment and the sort of like the history and the trajectory that it is going. So we talked a bit about stripping and moving into burlesque, and you becoming you're an artistic director now, is that right?
At Sexquisite Events.
Yeah. And so you must have a sort of a rough feel of where you think adult entertainment is going. And I'm sort of conscious of how like porn over the last 10-20 years has gone from like VHS to DVD to like torrents and Pornhub, and now I suppose what we're seeing is it move into that kind of OnlyFans arena where traditionally there's this idea that like the actors or like the talent are being exploited, right, in adult films. But then OnlyFans sort of takes that and turns it on its head in a way, doesn't it? Because it's like, well, I've been brought up to believe that all of these girls on Pornhub are all fucking heroin addicts that are just doing it for money and they're being exploited. But actually now there's this thing over here where like the girls are obviously doing it of their own free will and making a fucking gang of money. Like, so is that your perspective as well? Like,
yeah, so just to say, sorry, I didn't know what you were trying to say earlier. So Sexquisite Events, we do workshops and events, and we put on cabarets with sex worker artists. But the virtual strip club is called Cybertease.
Got it.
And that's the one where we do like sexy online strip shows, and we get people to come and watch, and it's more like an online strip club.
Okay.
In terms of sex work, I think that all work can be exploitative, and all industries you'll have people who are exploiting the workers. So like even in like a shop or an office or whatever, you will have the big bosses who are like making people work long hours or making people do things they don't want to do. And like that is kind of more of an analogy for like, I guess, like really badly run porn production companies and things like Pornhub, who are not necessarily getting everyone's consent or like doing things they don't want to do. Obviously OnlyFans is a platform where you have control over what you're posting.
Yeah.
And it's perfect. They still take 20%. They still shut down people's accounts without telling them. It's still run by a man, but like we're getting there. It's like it's the first step within like being able to control and distribute our own content the way that we want to. And the thing is, places like Pornhub is that a lot of the videos on there were uploaded without people's consent. So like it's a real problem. And Pornhub has been questions about this a lot of times, and they say no, we check every video, and it's like I don't think they really do, because there were some instances where like underage videos and like videos without consent were uploaded for a time there. And I think you should only be able to upload your own content, really.
Yeah, it can't be that difficult for them either. Like, I mean, this is the thing that I always marvel at with Twitter, where I'm like, how the fuck is it like 2021 and I can still create an anonymous account on Twitter, talk shit, like get a tweet onto the trends? Like, all of that should be restricted unless I have verified that I am in the place that I say that I'm in. And like, I understand some people might want to have their handle anonymous for whatever reason. But I think the account itself should have to be verified that you are where you say you are.
Where you say you are, as in like your specific location.
At the minimum in the country that you say that you're in. Like if you're, let's say that you're trans and you don't feel comfortable having that publicly known, then that sort of scenario, I understand why you might not then get verified, and then everyone in your little Texan village knows that you're the trans kid, and you're like that sort of situation.
There, really, like I think the problem is that things like Twitter are great for like people to connect and people to talk to people and be honest in a way that they can't always be. Like a lot of sex workers are not out, a lot of trans people are not out, and like you can kind of like have a different persona, have a different handle, have a different picture, and you don't have to say who you are. And I think that's great, and it's like a really safe space for you to be able to talk about stuff. But I guess the problem is that when people hide behind these anonymous accounts and they're not posting positive things, they're not looking for their community, they're just doing it to troll people and to be bigoted, that's a separate issue. So it's like, this is like with anything, you have these rules and there are always people who will abuse the rules. So just because there were some people who abuse the rules, it doesn't mean the rules are bad.
No.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree to a point. I think the rules, it's not that the rules are bad. Like, the rules are obviously pretty good. Like with Twitter, if you read through the terms and conditions, which I have not, but if I did, I'm sure that they would say stuff like, you know, you can't be abusive, you can't do this, you can't do that. But people obviously fucking do. So I think like maybe it's not the rules that are bad, but the enforcement around them. And I feel like maybe it's the same with somewhere like Pornhub. I mean, I haven't looked in depth to their terms and conditions or some of the issues that they've got themselves into, but I imagine that if they've got a problem with people uploading footage of girls without their consent, maybe underage girls, I don't think, like, as a techie, I know that it is possible to put in processes that get rid of that issue. Yeah, so if they're not doing it, then it's because either they don't care or their tech departments are fucking shit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is that some adult sites, their tech department is pretty shit. If you ever looked at Adult Work, which is like the campsite,
Right.
it looks like someone made it in the 90s and never updated it.
Yeah.
It took me ages to work out how to like update really easy things on my profile because it's just so badly. So I can believe that some of these sites, the tech's not there. But yeah, I think you have a responsibility if you're running an adult site, you have a responsibility to make sure that the content on that site is,
Yeah.
you at least try and make sure that it
You'd think that
has.
like the shame factor would take over, wouldn't you? Like, I don't mean like for the girls. I mean like for the guys that are running those sites. I would think.
I like to feel ashamed.
But like I don't mean like shame as in like, oh, I'm running a porn site. Like that's fine. I mean, I've toyed with the idea.
I know.
But
I mean, people like that don't feel ashamed that they've not checked someone's content, that they're putting this stuff out there, that they're exploiting people. This is how people get away with exploitation because they don't feel guilty or ashamed about it, but they make people who are doing perfectly natural things,
yeah,
like sex work, like consensual sex and that sort of stuff. Society makes us feel ashamed, but it doesn't make the people who are exploiting other people feel ashamed.
but if you let's play hypotheticals for a second. If I'm Joe Bloggs, I'm a big fat 57-year-old seasoned IT director, and I decide a quick way to make some money is to set up footfetish.com. And the first 3 videos that are uploaded are by some anonymous user in the Ukraine, and all 3 of them are of underage girls. And let's say it's like, they're like 13-year-olds, like too young, like in unmistakably too young. And what I'm thinking is, as me, the 57-year-old IT director guy, I would be thinking, I'd be worried, I'd be shitting my pants that I was going to be some sort of social pariah through all my friends and family when my face ends up in the Daily Mail and it says like, Portsmouth-based IT director of child porn. So, like, I would be thinking ahead. I'd be like, how can I restrict people from doing this, and how can we stop stuff and verify it before it goes live on the, So I'd think,
but
that would kick in.
Once something becomes like that bigger corporation, it doesn't work like that anymore. It's bigger than that. It's like all these rich people who get away with stuff.
Yeah.
It's not just one guy like in his basement being like, oh no, I can't have this on the internet. Oh no, I don't want to get done for this.
No.
It's like a multi-million-pound organization that has been going for a long time, where they have so much money, they don't care about these things. They have so many lawyers that they can just shut down all this stuff if they're going to get sued for something. Do you know what I mean? It's beyond that point.
Yeah. It's that sort of I can't remember the name of like the legislation, but I remember watching a documentary talking about how corporations in America, I think it was in the 60s or the 70s, and they lobbied and successfully got it into the ledge books to say that a corporation is not a suable like one person entity. It is just this thing. So it's like you can't sue a corporation in the same way. Like if somebody makes a mistake at the top of Coca-Cola, it's like, yeah, you can't send someone to jail for that because it's a corporation. And I suppose it's the same with Pornhub or Adult Work or wherever, is that it's just this entity. It's just a thing that happens. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we need a platform run by sex workers for sex workers that runs really well and is really popular.
Yeah.
And hopefully one day that will exist.
Well, there you go. I mean, you can put your entrepreneurial spirit into that.
I don't think it extends that far. No.
So what?
At the very most, I could do the tiniest bit of coding, but it would take me about 200 years to build a website like that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've been thinking over the last few, like 2 or 3 weeks, I was having a chat with a developer I know, and we were talking about if there was a market for an OnlyFans clone, basically, but that one that didn't take 20% of the cut, would take 10%, say, that feels like a more sort of
0%.
Well, you got to make money for, like, what's the point making it if, like, I think 10% is a more traditional figure for management,
Depends, because like if you think, I don't know, it's difficult, isn't it? The thing is because sex workers have had money taken off them for so long,
Yeah.
it's really difficult to then be like, yeah, we'll just agree to another thing that takes money off us. Whereas, like, I think another kind of company or another kind of thing that you're doing, it doesn't feel as exploitative, but I think it feels more exploitative because we have historically been more exploited, because you know, there have been like pimps who have taken money off their full service sex workers for years and years, and like strip clubs who've taken money off strippers. It's kind of like, we gave our money now. We've already done that. We've paid.
Yeah.
We've paid our house fees. We deserve to not have to pay house fees anymore. But I get that like platforms have to make money and stuff. Perhaps a better way would be to run it like more like a social media thing where there's advertising and you make revenue that way rather than charging the sex workers to sign up to the site.
Yeah, you could have a sort of...
What OnlyFans does do, which is good, is that because it got forced to start asking people for VAT, is it makes the customer pay all that extra VAT, so we don't lose any money from that. So it could be that the customer pays the levy for using the site rather than the sex worker.
Does that... In fact, I thought, is that not the case then? Like, I guess it's not if you're talking about that they take 20% of the cut, but the
20% is not for VAT, it's that they take our 20% to make money on the site. But the VAT they take off the customer. So when the customer sends you money, they're actually, so say I was charging $10 for something, the customer would actually pay $11 or $12, whatever, and then I would see like $8 of that.
Yeah.
Or whatever. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I see. I get it. Okay, so if we look at OnlyFans as the sort of like the neo, like the status of it currently, of like adult entertainment, of where it's come from and where it's at now, where do you think adult entertainment is going to go for like online performers or like in-person performers? Like how do you think that's going to progress over the next couple of years?
I don't know. I have no idea. I think OnlyFans and those sort of platforms will continue to grow and people will continue to work on them. And I think this pandemic has made people, you know, realize that you can just watch an online show at home. You can see things online. You know, without Cybertease, we can have performers from all over the globe, and you might be in London, but you can watch our show regardless. So it's like it has opened up that kind of avenue, and there will always be people who want to sit home and watch sex work or watch shows, and there will always be people who would rather experience that in person. So I think, you know, as like technologies and platforms innovate, it will just keep growing. Hopefully we'll stop getting pushback at some point from everyone who wants to censor us, because there's no way to censor us. Like porn is like the biggest thing on the internet, and you can't stop it.
Wasn't there a new law like a couple of years ago? Theresa May's government brought it in, I think, it was something to do with restricting porn, wasn't it?
So basically the law is that if it's paid, if it's a paid porn site, so any sort of paid sex work, there are certain things that you can't show. So like, and some of the things were like, you know, extreme BDSM, that sort of thing. But some of the things were really ridiculous, like face sitting.
Wow.
Show female ejaculation.
Really?
Because, it might have pee in it, which doesn't make any sense because A, like, why not? But also B, they don't differentiate between the difference between squirting and female ejaculation, which are actually different things.
Yeah.
So female ejaculation comes from the vagina, and it's more like a sticky kind of substance that is more like semen, and squirting comes like more from the urethra, and it might have pee in it, and it's a different kind of thing. So like, that's not actually female ejaculation. They were trying to ban squirting, but they didn't want to write squirting, so they wrote the wrong thing.
Right.
Yeah, so basically those laws are in place. Like, you can't really, on OnlyFans, you can't do any peeing videos and that sort of thing. You're not supposed to do certain things.
Right.
And it will flag. So because of like the BDSM thing, if you type the word whipping, it won't let you type the word whipping. So you have to space it out. So if I want to sell my wax and whipping video,
yeah,
I have to like whip play or whipped with a star in it or whatever.
Wow. So even on like OnlyFans, which is explicitly for adults and adults are paying for it, you still get censored. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's ridiculous. And like there's another thing on adult work that says you can't do any period play. So you can't like which doesn't make any sense to me because there's no blood play. And I understand why there's no blood play because of like injuries and that sort of thing. So I
right.
kind of get that. But why can't we show having sex on our period or someone going down on us on our period or me getting fingered and having some period blood on my finger? What is so offensive about that when it's a natural bodily substance and yet you can show all the fucking male cum in the world,
Yeah.
but you can't show period blood? It's just,
But
yeah.
I love the idea that there's these guys, logging on to OnlyFans or logging on to adult work, and they're scrolling through all manner of stuff that you could find on those sites, and everything's fine. And then when it finally gets down to a girl with no clothes on and then a tiny bit of blood there, then they're just like, oh no, come on, no, that's the line, that's the line. Close
I
the
mean,
laptop.
it's weird because like in my experience in real life, like some guys are a bit grossed out by it and some guys are like nah, don't really care, and then some guys are like yeah, that's hot. So like, there's a whole spectrum of
Yeah.
like grossness to indifference to like fetishizing it, but like you're not catering for that if you're not letting people do it. But
It's a weird thing, isn't it? It sort of goes against.
and I also think that like eradicating it from porn kind of like it's an ongoing cycle because once you eradicate it then you don't want to see it, you don't want to see it in real life, then you don't want to see it on porn, then you can't show it on porn, then you don't want to see it in real life, then you can't show it in real life, and it perpetuates the stigma of periods.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I was going to sort of say from a political standpoint, it kind of goes against, weirdly. I mean, I know people would say, well, it's definitely a very conservative thing to sort of censor that sort of stuff. But actually, I would counter that if conservatism is all about making your own choices, self-responsibility, all of that stuff, then kind of it should be up to the free market. Like it should be up to me if I want to bust out a quick jerk over.
Right about what conservatism actually means, and I
Yeah.
don't really know what it means because some conservatives want things to be censored and some conservatives want all the free speech. So which one is it? I don't know.
In my experience, they only want the free speech when it means giving Clarkson like a get out of jail free card, or
I think if you and I also think there are a lot of liberals who say that they're liberal but they're not actually liberal and they only want to be open minded if it's something that they agree with. So I think everyone needs to be. I don't know. We need to. The words liberal and conservative have been like ruined basically by people,
yeah.
and they don't really mean what they should mean anymore.
No, yeah, they've sort of gone flipped reverse, haven't they? Like if you say liberal now, the first thing that leaps into my mind is people calling me or other people a libtard. Like it's been so stained and tainted, the word liberal, that it's like what it should mean by definition is like it should mean that you're open to ideas, like you're free thinking.
Yeah, totally. But it almost doesn't anymore. And there's like some liberals who are definitely not like that. And it's like, then you're not liberal, are you? You're something else.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other political discussion.
Yeah. I want to sort of go back to like the future of, because I had an idea for a future product and I want to run it by you as a future entrepreneur, possible investor. So here we go, right?
Got me on the podcast. It was just for this.
Yeah. This is just a glorified pitch. So here's right, and I'll preface this by saying I have no idea how to build this fucking thing, but I think if I can find someone that codes in like C++ or whatever, I think we could do it. So you have a prosthetic vagina that has like little sensors inside it, and then I'm here and I push my penis inside it and it can tell the exact, like to the millimeter, where my junk is. And then on the other side of the planet, there's a robotic penis that then listens to the movements and then replicates it perfectly. So then I can fuck someone on the other side of the planet just by the internet. Do you think that would work?
I like the idea of it. I just think that even if someone offered me that, I'd be like, I'll just get my vibrator and like I'll just put it on the bits that feel good. Like I'm gonna do a way better job than any man. So like yeah, I like the idea of it. I think it's a nice idea. But in reality, I don't know. Maybe-
It's, I mean, I suppose you'd have to be
I think
getting.
I think it thinks that like it it kind of like ass- what's the word? Not assumes, but like puts men as way better in bed than they actually are.
How dare you? I am a warrior.
Hashtag not all men.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry, man, and you're watching. Um,
yeah.
but yeah,
I see what you're
I
saying.
think
Like it sort of takes something that already works quite perfectly by itself and then wraps a man around it to say like, well, thank God I'm here to fix this thing. Yeah.
exactly. It's like, no, I was putting my vibrator in the right place. Why are you moving that way? No, don't move that way. Oh no, up a bit. Oh no, what are you doing? Oh my God,
Yeah. Oh,
never gonna work.
yeah, yeah. Actually, yeah, it's sort of clarifying it now for me. Really, what it's like is like a clumsy man operating a robot that he has no idea how it works.
For sure, go for it. Go on Dragon's Den and see what they say.
Yeah, yeah. I'll I'll bear that in mind. Okay, so right, next question. Got another question for you.
Go on.
This is where we get. So we're about sort of 3/4 of the way through. So this is where it gets professional with actual questions.
Okay.
Um,
This is where it gets professional.
yeah.
No.
So given that the shelf life traditionally of strippers and adult entertainers is quite short when compared to like a solicitor or a doctor or whatever. And I don't know if you saw, did you see the news story about like the deep fakes with Tom Cruise?
No.
Right. So some guy, this computer scientist, has deep faked Tom Cruise to be doing magic tricks on TikTok. And he's just like uploaded these videos and they're fucking amazing. Like they are, I mean, I take great pride in sort of looking at deep fakes and just going like, yeah, I mean, it's not perfect. Like you can't really, you can tell something's up. Like, but this is, I mean, it's great. It really is great. If I didn't tell you it was a deep fake, you would assume that it was a video of Tom Cruise about 10 years ago or whatever. So let's assume that you have seen it or that you take my word for it, that deep fake technology is now at a point where you can actually recreate stuff like that. And if the shelf life of adult entertainers, strippers, porn stars and so on is reasonably short, would you consider, let's say 15, 20 years time, would you consider deep faking earlier versions of yourself to keep your OnlyFans going?
See, I think the whole question is worded wrongly because it assumes that, you know, our attractiveness is going to decrease as we age and that we have to like hang up our stripper shoes at some point, when actually that is not the case. And there was a market for sex workers at any age. You know, there were sex workers who are in their 50s and 60s and maybe even beyond, like making content and having followers.
Really?
And
So I am like,
yeah,
I'm not coming to this from a position of
totally.
yeah.
I think that's a massive assumption that you have to be young. Oh my God, you have to be a hot teen to be a sex worker. And it's like that's something that we have wrong in our society where we fetishize young, very young looking women. And as soon as a woman gets past a certain age, it's like, oh, well, you're done now. Like, why don't you get a deep fake of yourself from 20 years ago? And like, yeah, you know, sometimes you might look back on pictures of yourself when you're a bit younger and be like, oh, you know, I looked quite hot then. But I think as a society, we have to embrace us aging and embrace our different stages in our life. And like the worst thing about sex work and porn is that you're a teen until you're a MILF. But it's like we're so much more complex than that. Like we're it's different. And the other thing I would say is that something we haven't touched on yet is that obviously most sex workers are women,
Yeah.
but a lot of sex workers are men, a lot of sex workers are trans, and not all clients are also male. So like we have to like keep remembering that actually, you know, sex work is not just something that women do, it's something that lots of people do, and consumers are not just men as well.
Okay. So, I mean, is that a no? You wouldn't deep fake yourself, or?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think my brand is all about being authentic and being myself, and like that would feel like not for me. But you never know what's going to happen in the future. You know, 10 years ago I said I would never get any cosmetic surgery, and now I've had lip filler and my eyebrows microbladed, and like I'm sure
Really?
as I get older, I will probably have more cosmetic treatments because yes, people do want to look younger, but that's something that's my personal choice, and that's not something that everyone should feel like they have to do
Yeah,
in order to stay attractive in our society.
Okay. All right. Cool. I will just add a can't think of the word now. Add an add-on to that and just say, yeah. I mean, I did say this wasn't very professional.
No, it's fine. And the thing is that you asking these dumb questions is like actually really good because the average person doesn't know that much about sex work and doesn't always think this way about things. They just see what they've seen from watching porn. You see what you've seen from a sex worker in a TV show once, but like,
yeah,
okay to like ask these questions as long as you're open to being educated about them.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things. I don't know if you ever met Ishan Akbar.
Yeah, I know Ishan. Yeah.
I remember sort of asking him questions about race and his background and stuff. And I used to sort of say to him, like half jokingly, but, a lot of truth is said in jest and all that. And I used to say, like, I hope you don't ever think that any of my chat or like talk is offensive. Like, I'm genuinely just curious. And I'm, like I said to you, like, I'm not coming from a position that is anything other than ignorance here. I just want to know, just want to ask questions and find out more.
Fine. It's all about intent and like how you come across, and like obviously I know you're not just wanting me to expose my trauma on the
sure
kind of
yeah
stuff.
yeah
Genuinely interested in giving sex workers a platform to talk about our work, and I think that's really useful, and more people should be doing that.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, if we look at where you started and then you moved into comedy, and now the pandemic has sort of allowed you to flourish and build your online presence. And I know that you're very vocal on Twitter and about sex worker rights. And so after, let's assume that the pandemic does all die down and we're all back out getting smashed on June the 22nd. What do you think the next couple of years is going to look like for you? Are you going to sort of go more into sort of burlesque adult entertainment and then, the getting sex workers involved in or giving them more opportunities? Are you going to go down that route, or do you think you'll go back more aggressively into the stand-up stuff?
I think I've seen them all as connected, and I want to do both. So like even with Sexquisite Events, I'm like the resident host, so I will do comedy while I'm hosting the events. I want to do lots of performing, lots of putting on shows, and like there'll be different times in my life where I would devote more energy to different things, and then sometimes I might come back around and then work on a different project. But I see myself as like being a real entrepreneur and doing that, and then like obviously on the side I'll be doing OnlyFans to try and get some money and stuff, but like OnlyFans is not like my passion. It's something that I do for a bit of extra money, and it can be fun, but like we also have to bear in mind that sex work is not always fun, and sometimes it's quite hard work. Sometimes it's quite a lot of emotional labor. Yeah, it's just kind of like mixing between where the money is and where the creativity is, and finding where they overlap and that sort of thing.
I feel like,
but I definitely I think being an activist is something that's really important to me now, and something that I want to like make art about and kind of like put the word out there.
I read a thing a while ago, I think it was in The Guardian, by Rupert Everett, I think it was.
Okay, bit random.
Yeah, where he was talking about sex workers in Soho, and he was saying how there was this fight for Soho apartments and land and stuff under the guise of hammering down on sex trafficking or like people trafficking. And basically his point was that these girls were getting turfed out of places in Soho, and they were doing raids on strip clubs and so on. But they were trying to make it look as though they were saving these poor innocent girls who had been trafficked.
I forgot about this. Do you want me to talk?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically what the police did is that they went to all these kind of walk-up places. They interviewed each individual worker, and actually the workers weren't doing anything wrong because they were in their own separate kind of like rooms or separate buildings.
Yeah.
technically legal. Obviously, brothel keeping is technically illegal in the UK, but they said, oh, is there anything we can be doing to help you? Blah, blah, blah. How did you work? Blah, blah, blah. And these workers told the police everything, and the police used that information to shut down every single one of these walk-ups. There was only one that they weren't allowed to shut down, and the one that they couldn't shut down, I think, had a different judge.
Right.
Okay.
And so, is it, like, am I misremembering this?
I don't know. But yeah.
Am I misremembering it if I say that wasn't it something to do with like property where there?
Oh yeah, he wanted to build property. They closed down Madame Jojo's, which is a massive like cabaret burlesque venue, and they shut it down because they wanted to like just build property in that area and destroy the history of Soho as being somewhere for like fun and adult entertainment and that kind of stuff. And like, yeah.
What?
and it really makes you not trust the police at all.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna. The thing is, what they do is they say that it's sex trafficking as a way to shut it down, but they don't distinguish between sex trafficking and consensual sex work, which are two very different things. Very different.
Yeah. And it's like what is the end goal there for London as well? Like, I mean, I know that sounds harrowing, like if you're a sex worker and then you suddenly lose your place of work and you're forced out onto the street, which nobody wants to see that.
But like, people knew where to go for them, so now they've got to like set up a whole new place, like tell their clients to go to a different place, maybe work out of their home, or only do out calls, or work with someone else, like work out of someone else's place. So like, it's just really disorientating. And the fact is that they could appeal that decision, but by the time they appeal, it's already been too late. They've already lost the premises and they're already kind of on the back foot, so it's like almost no point. And the people in charge know that, and they know that they have the power.
And then, like, I think almost if you zoom out, as a guy who lived in London for 6 years, I saw London change in the time that I lived there. And I know that this isn't the greatest tragedy of all of them, but when I first moved to London, Camden was still quite cool. Like, it was a fun, quite gothy, artsy place to hang out. And by the time I left, it was a fucking bin of I Love London vomit and just the worst, just like touristy tat everywhere. Like, and I remember thinking, I think when I first moved there, it was all like, the Libertines and Amy Winehouse and, that whole kind of scene going on. And there was a buzz to it. And then it just became like a parody of itself. It was like, yeah, you can come to this shop and buy a Sex Pistols t-shirt. And then you go to like 2 shops down, same Sex Pistols t-shirt or Madness t-shirt or whatever. And it was getting like that with Hackney as well. Like, Hackney used to be super cool, and then it became a parody of itself. And then the same thing will happen with Soho. Like, somebody will do a property deal off the back of like turfing these poor girls out. And then everything will just become another Pret and a shiny office building. Or
Can I just ask that you call them women rather than girls? Like,
I'm
obviously,
sorry. Yeah.
It's fine. Like, I used to work the term girls sometimes, and like, you might talk about the girls at work at the strip club, but like, I just think we have to get more into the habit of calling adult women rather than calling them girls. Because I don't think we do that with men. I think as soon as a man is 18, it's like he's a man.
Well, yeah, like early 20s, probably.
I mean, 35,
Yeah. Do you know what's it like? I was thinking about this the other day about how much it annoys me when the one guy in the group comes over to the other guys in the group and then says, well, how we doing, boys? Like that. It irks me. So
it's because he's trying to seize control, isn't it? He's like, I want to be an alpha. I'm going to call them all boys.
Yeah. It's like sort of condescending-y. So it's, I don't know. Maybe.
Well, now you know how it feels.
Yeah.
It's interesting watching the dynamic of like groups of men in the strip club, because they will kind of like try and do their alpha male type thing, and like one of them will think it's really funny to say that their friend is gay, like that's the funniest thing, or they'll think it's really funny to say that they're gay when they're not actually, because they don't want to go for a dance, or one of them will say to one of the other ones, he's my dad, and in their it's not even his dad, and I'm like, oh my god, why did we get this reputation that men are so funny? Where did this come from?
But then is it like the sort of, without sounding snobby, is there a certain type of man that is like that?
Man that's like that.
Or
I
boy?
don't know.
Is there a certain type of boy that's like that?
Maybe, maybe,
I
maybe.
I know
Some people
men
say
who,
that. Maybe you're, as a comedian, obviously your humor's a bit more advanced. But I guess I'm talking about the average
yeah. I like that you put
man.
me somewhere outside of average. I won't ask you exactly where. Um, okay, so we're running out of time a little bit, so I'm just going to ask you some quick fire
I love quick fire.
muck raking questions. So here we go. What's the last thing that you did that you really wish you hadn't?
I can't answer that. I'm sorry. Next.
Okay. You're on OnlyFans. You've been on there for how long?
Since May last year.
Cool.
If you want to follow me, it's at April Fiasco.
Cool. Nice plug. Foot fetishes. How many men, percentage wise, would you say are into feet?
Only one of my fans is into feet.
Really?
Or expressed an interest in feet and tipped me for feet and asked specifically for feet.
Fascinating. Because I'm sort of led to believe that there's quite a lot of men. Like it's never really.
Yeah, they just not necessarily come to me because I would not make a thing of having my feet out, but occasionally I'll do a few cute feet pics and people will, one person will message me about them. But like because I'm not a specific foot fetish OnlyFans person, I'm not getting all the foot fetish people. There's someone else who's only posting foot pics who's getting all those fans. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, cool. So maybe what we do after this is we thrash out a model and a financial plan for like only feet.
Okay.
All right. Right. Next question. So they say that whatever fetish you can think of, it already exists somewhere on the internet, right?
Yeah.
Has there ever been anything that someone has asked you for where you've gone, no, that is too weird. That is off the charts?
I had one guy on OnlyFans who asked me to do like a JOI video, which is jerk off instruction, where you're just like talking dirty and then they wank to it. And he was like, "Can you pretend that we're brother and sister?" And I was like, "No." And I actually typed in the chat, I don't do incest play, and OnlyFans wouldn't let me type the word incest.
Wow.
So I don't do family play.
I love the fact that their algorithm like censors you for saying no to it rather than him.
Isn't it? It's the word. It's not the context.
Yeah. God, they're always oppressing the sex workers.
I know. How dare they? But yeah, I'm not up for incest play.
It's good to hear that. Okay, and then last question: what is on your playlist right now?
Oh, my playlist.
If you opened up your Spotify or your iTunes,
probably the Cybertease Slumber Party playlist, because we just did a show called Slumber Party, and all the songs were about like dreams and sleeping, and like we had like, what's that famous Slumber Party song by I can't say the name, Ashikino.
No idea. I'm shown how.
And then I danced to "Dream a Little Dream of Me" by the Mamas and Papas.
Oh, that's nice.
Thank you.
Ironically, I think one of the singers from that was done for incest, wasn't he?
You just made that
No,
up.
I'm serious. Like, it's just so perfectly timed after what you just said.
No,
I'm serious.
Right.
It was like one of the singers for it. Like it turned out that he had. I think I'm right in saying this. He had a kid with his daughter. Like he'd been like fucking doing all sorts with his own kid.
Mamas and Papas incest. What's gonna come up? Oh, okay. Interesting. Oh my god.
There we go.
No way.
Well, I'm sorry to leave it on that slightly dour note. But it's been educational for both of us now. So yeah, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me. And yeah, if anyone wants to catch up with Carmen, then she's on Twitter at Carmen Ali or April Fiasco. And no?
Can I do my own?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you crack on.
My Twitter is actually at CA_AF. On Instagram, it's at Carmen Ali and also at April Fiasco. But if you Google Carmen Ali or April Fiasco, I will come up and you will find all my links and all my things. And if you also follow at Cybertease _ on Twitter or Instagram and at Sexquisite.events on Instagram.
Perfect.
And you can donate to crowdfunder for Sexquisite. Thank you.
I'm so happy that you did that because you did it way more professionally than I did. Cool. Okay.
Not much to go, babes.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Thanks for having me, Abe.
Bye.